Today's podcast isn't sponsored by anyone, because apparently I have a bad attitude. Me, a bad attitude. I'll tell you who has a bad attitude. All of you. But that won't be a problem after I complete my plan for worldwide domination. Now, where did I put my to-do list?
Hello, and welcome to Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG talk. I am, as always, Morrus, aka Russ, or Russ, aka Morrus, and with me is my Academy Award-winning fellow co-host,
Peter Coffey from the Southampton Guild of Role Players. And which academy did I win an award from? Well, I'm not telling.
Yes. Well, no, I did not specify which academy.
If you think it's movies, you're deeply disappointed. Yes.
So, Peter.
Yes.
It's been quite a big week.
It's been a massive week. Turbulent.
So what's caught your eyes in the last week?
Several things have caught my eye.
Several things.
Several things.
Wow, that's a bit greedy, don't you think?
I know. But I'll only choose one.
Okay.
And save the others to froth about later if they come out in the news. But the big thing that I've noticed is Sandy Peterson's Call of Cthulhu for Pathfinder.
Ooh.
Yeah. The Call of Cthulhu, the mythos setting, based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft and many others, that is absolutely huge for me personally, because I'm big fan of his work. His writing, I'll be honest, it's not great. The prose is a deep shade of purple, but guilty pleasure, hands up, I do enjoy it. And his racial politics are super uncool, dude. But you know what? It's still that sense of creeping horror, which is absolutely fantastic. I love in stories.
So you say it's Call of Cthulhu for Pathfinder. It's
Yes.
not actually Call of Cthulhu, is it? It's the Cthulhu mythos.
It is Cthulhu Mythos.
Yeah,
Yes.
Call of Cthulhu being a different game.
Call of Cthulhu is a very different game.
Yes.
But yeah.
So what actually is it, though? I haven't looked into it closely.
Well, essentially, it's a honking 412-page source book where he addresses various things like rules for insanity. And one of the things I really appreciate is he's making it very clear that he's talking about insanity has represented in literature and film as opposed to real life insanity, which is a very different kettle of fish altogether. Yeah. Actual mental illness is not something that I personally think is something to be taken lightly. It's an area surrounded by ignorance and prejudice, which is pretty unfortunate, really. But no, what he does is he looks at a sort of the cinematic take. He's also got things like enhanced rules for cat folk based on weird cats. There's I can't remember the name of it. It's that city with loads of cats, and then they appear. So
Southampton has loads of cats.
Yeah,
I went out earlier today and I saw one.
Kitties has PCs, so Nyarlathotep's small feline companions are now playable races available to him.
So this is a setting book for Pathfinder, basically.
Yeah, I'm going to say you'll need the Pathfinder base rules.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about it because I haven't actually got a copy of it myself. Not actually playing Pathfinder. But the thing that will cause intense amounts of froth is that they're planning on releasing the Kickstarter in October.
Interesting. They've got one for 5th edition going on right now, haven't they?
That is probably the one I'm thinking of. So yeah, 5th edition Cthulhu Mythos.
Yes.
That's going to be a big deal. Because one of the first things many people want to try and hack 5th edition to do is try and make it run horror games and so forth. Something which isn't the most obvious and intuitive leap from a rule system that's designed to do high fantasy dungeon rules fantastically well, and other stuff maybe less well. So yeah, that's been a big deal for me, and looking forward to seeing what comes out of it.
Keeping an eye out for that one then.
Indeed, that's what, as I say, caught my eye. Did some research. What can I say? What's caught your eye, Russ?
Well, bit of sad news actually.
Oh yeah.
So Greg Stafford, who was you were just talking about Call of Cthulhu, but Greg Stafford, the founder of Chaosium,
Yes.
Passed away last week.
Yeah.
Just a few days ago, in fact.
It's super recent.
Yeah. At the age of, I think it was about 70. It was a quite sudden occurrence, I believe.
Yeah, completely out of the blue.
Yeah, Chaosium announced it a few days ago, and I think it took a lot of people by surprise.
Absolutely.
Of course, Greg Stafford is, I think, when you think about the sort of greats in RPG, you think about Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson and
Absolutely.
people like that. But Greg Stafford, without a doubt, is one of those people. He was like there back in the 1970s. He was one of the founding figures of the hobby. And outside of D&D itself, I'd say, arguably, he's possibly one of the biggest, maybe the biggest figure in the RPG industry.
Undoubtedly. Had been absolutely hugely influential. I mean, if you're looking at sort of one of the founding fathers, then it's Greg Stafford's right up
there's
there.
RuneQuest, there's co-creator of the Ghostbusters RPG, which was the first dice pool system. His Glorantha setting, which is one of the oldest RPG settings in existence, and has been converted into you mentioned to me earlier before we started the podcast, there's a recent 13th Age version of the Glorantha.
Yes, absolutely. I didn't really understand what all the fuss was about, but now I'm like finding out more about it, and also things like Hero Quest, which as a kid I played a lot of Hero Quest, and which he sold the rights to, was it Milton Bradley, and then they let the rights expire, so that's why there's been such a revival. Which again, these things, which I mean, finding out that this one guy is responsible for all this stuff has really brought it all together for me. So
Interestingly, his last public appearance was at the Ennies last year, and we've got a video of it on the website when we made the announcement that he passed, and he just gave this fairly short but quite sweet speech about the industry and about fans and stuff like that, and I think it was a really nice kind of last memory.
So it sounds like it was a really positive force.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, the thing with Greg Stafford is, I mean, I didn't know him well, but I did know him, and he, I think, out of all the people in the RPG industry, he was one of the nicest people. I mean, he was so nice to everyone he met, to fans, to fellow creators. Well, when I say fellow creators, it's not like I felt like I was a peer in any way, but you know what I mean.
He was a kind sort of guy.
Yeah, I've only met him a couple of times. I interviewed him once, and I've exchanged sort of emails with him over the years occasionally. So I don't know him well or personally, but I met him, and every single interaction with him, he was just utterly lovely.
Yeah, he does sound that way from everything I've read, and a massive creative legacy as well, touching like so many people over so many years. It's quite leaving aside his personal life. We're just touching on like a fraction of his professional, but hell of a legacy.
He used to say his sort of greatest achievement, his greatest game was the Pendragon King Arthur game.
Oh yeah.
For him. Yeah. Certainly, he said on record more than once that that is the thing he's most proud of out of all the different. He considers that like the masterpiece of his career.
Really? Okay. I personally was unacquainted with it, except maybe vaguely.
Honestly, I'd have a look at it. I mean, it's an old game. Yeah. I mean, look at it through those lenses, but have a look at it. And the thing with Greg Stafford, it was who was it who said John Wick? He posted sort of obituary, because obviously he knew Greg Stafford quite well, and he said in the obituary this big sort of quote that stood out in the obituary. And he said, "What's really interesting about Greg Stafford is whenever you think you've come up with a new game mechanic." You can point to Greg Stafford having done it 2 decades ago.
Someone who's really...
Yeah, whenever you think you've innovated, make sure Greg Stafford didn't do it 2 decades ago. Because he probably did.
And he probably wouldn't mind you saying, oh, okay, that's how you do it. Oh, by the way, don't do that. I tried that doesn't work. But try this, it'll be really good. A big loss to us, and obviously our thoughts go out to his family as well, because hell of a thing.
So that's the sombre news out of the way.
Yes.
Let's move on to more cheerful stuff, shall we? Should we just do the news?
Yes.
Yes, we can be a bit more enthusiastic now.
Absolutely.
There's a new Unearthed Arcana up.
Oh, yes.
Which is the sort of playtest free articles that Wizards of the Coast put up.
Absolutely, for 5th edition D&D.
Yeah, at the moment they're going out once a month. This month, it's about magic items from the Eberron setting.
Oh, so sort of I'm hoping for a major steampunk feel to these.
Well, we got arcane focuses, enchanted clothing, warforged components, and more. This article's by Keith Baker, who's the creator of Eberron, and Wizards designers Ruti Rutenberg and Ben Petrizor. It's actually part of the Eberron Wayfarer's Guide to Eberron, which is on DM's Guild. So it's actually, I think it's an excerpt from that. Being sort of pulled out and given away for free as a sort of playtesting thing, because Wizards like people to sort of focus on certain things that they want playtested and get feedback, and then they'll do the survey later and get feedback on it. So if you've got the Wayfarer's Guide to Eberron, you've already got this. But if you haven't, and you head on over, well, we'll put the link in the show notes. Head on over, you can get that, and you can give that a quick play test and answer their survey in a week or two.
Oh, nice.
Ooh, so there's a new D&D board game coming.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, it's called Waterdeep, Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
Oh, so they're making a board game as well as the 6 to 20 expansion as well.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
So it's going to be using the adventure system games, which they used for Castle Ravenloft, Legends of Drizzt, Wrath of Ashtar-Adalon, Temple of Elemental Evil, that lot. So it's like it's compatible with those games, but it's a standalone one.
Oh, nice.
In its own right.
So you could maybe mix and match them together if you wanted to.
I guess, yeah. And also, it has a sort of modular dungeon tiles used to create the board.
Yes.
Which means that you can sort of.
You say board game, I hear fantastic scenery.
That's
strong convoluted dungeon fights.
I suppose so. Yeah.
Plus extra minis as well.
Yeah, no, but if you're a fan of the D&D board games, this is definitely a sort of must-have, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm taking away from this is I can get like a load of map tiles and like figure scale on them, and there's a free board game with it as well. Yeah, okay, that sounds pretty good. Any idea about what we've got in it? Like prices or how many dudes we have?
How many dudes?
Yes,
dudes. Let's have a look. See if we can call up a price somewhere. No, there's no price announced yet. The game releases in March 2019.
Oh, okay. So it's not like super urgent to find out what's going on.
Urgent.
Not in time for Christmas, unfortunately. Never mind.
Hello, your editor Daryl here. More information has come out since I wrote the column for Ian World last week. The Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage adventure board game from WizKids will include 42 miniatures, 40 interlocking dungeon tiles, 5 double-sized special tiles, and assorted tokens, playing cards, rulebooks, etc., and will come in 2 different editions. The standard edition with unpainted miniatures for $79.99, and a premium edition with pre-painted miniatures for $159.99. I do want to point out that the tiles in the Adventure Games series are thick cardstock, but are still much thinner and more flexible than the ones you'd get from the Wizards of the Coast Dungeon Tiles series. So I hope you know what to expect when you're picking this up as an RPG accessory, rather than the cooperative board game for 1 to 5 players. And it has been officially confirmed that this game does combine with the previous adventure game books and has new rules that are backwards compatible, such as new Bane and Boon cards, as well as doubling the character advancement for player characters. There's no specific release date, but it is still scheduled for March of 2019.
So I've got a question for you.
Far away.
Are you for or against? What's your general stance on Minotaurs?
It depends upon your Minotaur. Like the ones from the Monster Manual, like big hairy things. They're all right. It's sort of like okay for the old labyrinth plot that you want to do. But you know what? Crinnish Minotaurs, which are like basically like people, I actually have a really soft spot for them. I really like them.
Do you like them because they're sailors? Is that what it is?
Maybe.
When you did your sailing course last week, did you put on a hat with horns on it?
I admit nothing. I didn't, in fact, pretend to be a Viking in any way. Except in my head. Right, come on.
So Minotaurs are definitely, it has been suspected for a while, and there have definitely been hints being dropped, but have been confirmed by Wizards Jeremy Crawford that they will definitely be appearing in Player's Guide to Ravnica as a playable PC race.
Amazing.
Totally amazing.
Do we know?
Are you amazed?
Apparently so.
Okay. Do we know? Probably not, no.
Well, I
What
was
was your
aware
question?
that minor scores were in the offing because a couple of months back there was a sort of a nautical themed Unearthed Arcana. And it had things like the Spore Druids, the Mariner fighting style, which I personally think is really packed full of flavour, as well as a few bits of playtest material that I might permit on my games. And of course Minotaurs, which I was like looking at going, ooh.
Well, now you know why they were playtesting it.
Yes.
It's coming up in the book. Yes.
Yeah, right. Oh, it's also obvious in retrospect.
Shall we move on?
Yes, let's.
Baldur's Gate. Is there a Baldur's Gate 3 in production? Well, there might be.
Oh, okay. You're not just randomly speculating.
Well, I am speculating.
Oh, you are speculating.
But it's an informed speculation.
That's unlike you, Russ, I'll be honest.
So Brian, thank you so much.
No,
You do me self-esteem. So
No, I'm sorry, you're an excellent gem.
I'm just going to go and sit in the corner now. And you can do the podcast on your own. You and Django can do the podcast.
Ah, excellent. Some sensible conversation.
With Django's extensive knowledge of the RPG industry.
Look, if I need some circles turning, Django's got me covered.
It is true. Django is very good at turning in circles.
So Baldur's Gate 3.
We'll just get through it. So Brian Fargo of In Exile Entertainment tweeted last week, or was it the week before? Very, very, very little, and it's very, very short. But it was just in response to another tweet, and he basically just said, "Well, I know who's working on BG3," which immediately everyone jumped upon.
Yeah.
So it does sound like that is Baldur's Gate 3. The rumours have been circulating for a while. What he was responding to was a tweet which included a link to a 2012 article speculating on Baldur's Gate 3. Like 2012, God, that's a while back, isn't it? 6 years ago.
6
So
years.
yeah, it seems very, very likely that BG3 in that tweet does in fact mean Baldur's Gate 3.
It would seem weird if it wasn't. Who
He
knows?
didn't say anything else. Didn't say who was working on the game, whether it was in fact In Exile or anyone else. But it does sound like Baldur's Gate 3, I mean, with Pathfinder Kingmaker out there and like getting really, really good reviews, and I've played a bit more of it as well, and I really like it.
Is it good, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I just haven't got enough time to get as far into it as I want, because I'm so busy right now. So literally, I'm only like a couple of hours into the game so far. And, you know, I would have hoped to be much further in, but yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it.
Have you got out of the Burning Mansion?
Yes. I'm out of the Burning Mansion, and I am travelling across the world map. I've had some random encounters. I've arrived at was it Oleg's trading post, someone's trading post, and some bandits attacked and all sorts of stuff. It's all quite entertaining.
Marvellous. Yeah.
So yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 may be coming soon. Probably coming soon. Well, not soon, but coming.
Yeah.
At some point, which may or may not be soon.
Yeah. I don't know a bit of news that I happen to have picked up. You're aware of Achum Cthulhu?
Yes, I have heard of Acton.
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of a pulpy take on World War II meets Cthulhu mythos via generally Savage Worlds and so forth.
Yeah.
Achum Cthulhu Tactics hit stores, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday.
It's a video game.
It is a computer game,
Okay.
yes. And yeah, moderately entertaining. I have been, and when I say moderately entertaining, I'm talking as a man who's ploughed in about 23 hours so far.
Blimey.
Yes.
You have too much spare time, my friend.
Well, that is true.
I've managed 2 hours on Pathfinder Kingmaker, and you managed how many hours did you just say?
About 10 times that. But I personally enjoy it, and I happen to know because the person who is not named as lead developer, but who did a significant amount of the work, was very much involved in doing that. So he's down in Southampton this weekend and is very pleased about it, and I'm very pleased for him as well.
Fair enough.
Yes, that's Oric Entertainment.
There is a exclusive Dungeon of the Mad Mage preview up on Wizard of the Coast site.
Oh, really?
Yes. They make pains to say it's exclusive, but I suppose it would be, given that it's their own website and their own product. So anyway, right. So Dragon Plus, their in-house sort of promotional magazine thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That comes out every month. Issue 22 just came out. There is a Dungeon of the Mad Mage. The link in the show notes. Head on over and have a look at the exclusive preview of Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage over on Dragon Plus.
Absolutely. I shall probably do that at some point.
I would.
Yeah, it looks quite good.
Robert J. Schwab.
Oh, that's a name that rings bells.
You will have heard from him from such previous products as Shadow of the Demon Lord, Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition, Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition, and indeed Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition.
That's probably why.
That's probably why you've heard of him. He's a well-respected writer and publisher in his own right. Used to work for Wizards of the Coast. Has his own imprint now.
Yes.
He's launching another imprint related to his previous one. This is a D&D specific one.
Oh.
So he is calling it... He's naming it after his cat, interestingly.
Well, what else would you call something important?
Sure,
Name it after a cat.
I agree. He's naming it after his cat, and it's called Max Press. So he already owns Schwab Entertainment, and this is, I think, an imprint of Schwab Entertainment.
Well, at least I might be able to spell Max Press, to be fair.
There is that.
Yeah.
He released this announcement where he talks sort of about his sort of his history in D&D and so forth, and why he's returning to write for D&D.
Yep.
So starting soon, let's see, does that have a date of any kind?
Does he mention at a point because he likes money?
Well, don't we
I just throw that out. I do.
Don't we all? So as he says, he's very much continuing to support Shadow of the Demon Lord. Under this imprint, Schwab Entertainment will be publishing a series of short, focused supplements to add a bit of gloom to the otherwise sunny and upbeat worlds of D&D.
Alrighty, tell me more.
Sounds nice, doesn't it?
Is that what he said? Just a bit of gloom?
Bit of gloom, he says. So starting with Blasphemies of Bor Bwalsh, which is Rob Schwab backwards.
Oh, a fine tradition.
A fine tradition dating back to the 1970s of putting your own name in backwards in D&D products.
Because you hate.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. Yeah, I should do that. Anyway, moving on. So this is going to be 20 wicked spells for the game. Yeah. He's going to continue by producing new options for the various character classes and find other ways to inject a dose of darkness into your games. Nice. There you go. So if you want a few nasty surprises, Max Press is where to look.
Absolutely. It seems like there's a sort of a horror revival at the moment with the Kickstarter for the Cthulhu Mythos and Pathfinder. Sorry, the Kickstarter for Cthulhu Mythos in 5th Ed, and now we've got Max Press coming out with some stuff as well.
Nostalgia is big at the moment, isn't it?
Absolutely, and horror as well seems to be a strong theme.
So,
what else we got?
So a quick Paizo news roundup. As you know, Paizo release approximately 72.7 billion products per week.
Something on that order. So they've slowed down a fair bit since their heyday.
So there's just a very few quick ones to announce. Part 5 of the playtest update was released. The newest adventure test was called The Heroes of Undarin. And it sees the heroes exploring the world wound of Golarion. So that also included an update to the actual playtest rules.
Yes.
And it looks like the latest playtest update is they've done an overhaul of Ancestries, which is their name for races.
Yes, yeah.
They've responded to criticisms that being a half-elf or half-orc requires too much investment.
Okay.
They've added a heritage option when choosing Ancestry.
Ooh. Okay.
So I haven't looked at it myself. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it sort of opens up some first-level feats for most characters.
Ah, nice.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
Also on Paizo News,
Yes.
previewing some more of the playable species in the Starfinder Alien Archive.
Oh, nice.
So let's have a look at what some of those are.
We should do. Do they have them?
Because that sounds like the sort of thing we would do.
It does.
Right, so there's 16 playable species in Alien Archive 2.
Ah, eclectic boogaloo. Nice. Fantastic. Looking forward to it. What else is in the news?
Two things that I'd like to promote for myself, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I know it's terrible with me promoting my own stuff.
Shocking.
I know, but you know.
Whatever. Go on. If it's cool, then we'll want to hear about it.
Just released over the weekend a brand new book which is called Dark Decade, From Dusk to Dawn.
Ooh.
So this is part of the Rotsword's new W series.
W series?
So W1 was Xenomorphs.
Yeah, that's right.
W2 is Dark Decade, From Dusk Till Dawn. So each one of these adventures basically explores a different genre.
Right.
So
right.
W1 was basically space horror with Xenomorphs. W2 Dark Decade is kind of more sort of Buffy kind of thing, but it's a bit darker than Buffy. It's not quite as teeny and quippy as Buffy is. It's more.
I'm getting the impression it's not going to be shown at 6 o'clock on BBC Two.
Well, I wouldn't say it's I wouldn't say it's that dark, but I mean this is the description of it. So basically, it's a 40-odd page adventure.
Nice.
It gives you some background information on New York in the 1980s.
Oh yes. Yeah.
But this version of New York is a New York where all the bad stuff that happened in the 1980s, because New York that was kind of before New York was kind of cleaned up.
Yeah, massive crime wave.
Yeah, but all that wasn't really a massive crime wave.
Bum, bum, bum.
It was covered up. It was all vampires and ghouls and all this sort of stuff.
So supernatural beasties running amok on the streets of New York.
Yes.
Cats and dogs living together.
That sort of thing, yeah. So this book contains an adventure called From Dusk to Dawn, and also it contains new
From dusk to dawn.
Dust.
Dust. Oh, that's right.
Not
I
dusk.
was thinking it was dusk till dawn. I was just getting it
Because
wrong.
dust is there's a dust which gives you breathe it in and it gives you temporarily the powers of a vampire.
Yes.
That's the sort of the plot point. And it's going onto the streets of New York and stuff, and the PCs are kind of trying to investigate what's going on.
And they frequently turn to dust. I noticed from the cover that you've got Pierce. Is that Darren Pierce?
That is Darren Pierce.
Okay, and who's the third person?
Osvaldo Oyola.
Osvaldo Oyola, that's named to conjure with.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine. I've known him for many years. And Morrissey, that would be me.
Oh, yes, of course. Ah, fantastic.
So this book includes the Dampier, which is the half-vampire daywalker, and werewolf races.
Yeah.
Along with new careers being the Vampire Slayer, the Demonologist, the Exorcist, the Guardian, and the Sorcerer careers.
Oh, so if you like, say, the Blade movies or the Underworld movies, you could definitely throw those in there.
Yeah, I suppose, a good description of this would be cross-Blade with Buffy.
Oh.
And you kind of get this. So it's kind of the slightly more adult nature of Blade, along with the sort of setting of Buffy, I guess.
The Scooby Gang are definitely going to need to up their game.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing I am really, really excited about announcing is we have just announced 4 new products for the 2000 AD series.
What? 4 new products?
So these aren't actually part of the currently running Kickstarter, which I might add has just passed £115,000 and is just on the verge of £116,000.
What? £116,000?
So
that's quite good.
These won't be part of this Kickstarter, but we're announcing them now.
When does the Kickstarter end?
Next week. So this podcast is going out on Wednesday.
Yep.
Next Thursday, so not tomorrow, but the Thursday after.
Okay, so
midnight our time, or whatever time it is in whatever time zones.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So the 4 we have announced are 2 adventures, and those 2 adventures are Luna 1 and The Cursed Earth.
Nice.
I can't tell you too much about them yet. We've had approval to announce them.
Yeah.
And we've got the initial cover mock-ups up on the website, but that's it for the moment.
But I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if you're a big fan of Judge Dredd, then those names will have a certain mythic resonance.
Yeah. Luna 1's definitely not just the sort of small adventures when Judge Dredd was Judge Marshall of Luna 1. It's more of a space source book.
Oh, okay.
So it's slightly larger in scope.
Right. Well, of course, because you've got the new the new system to back you up with your various spaceships, so you can have like a fully blown space combat.
Oh, I suppose you could, yeah. I mean, Judge Dredd isn't really about that so much, but it includes like the Space Corps, it includes like Titan Penal Colony and all these different sort of space-based aspects of the Judge Dredd universe. So we'll cover all those things in there.
Yeah.
And Cursed Earth, well, more rules for mutants, adventures, all that sort of good stuff.
Absolutely.
So that's 2 of the products.
So that's 2 fairly solid fat books, yeah.
So those are for Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
The next 2 are not for Judge Dredd. These are the Worlds of 2000 AD part of the equation. So we have announced Rogue Trooper.
Oh, fantastic.
We have announced Strontium Dog.
I see.
So again, can't really tell you too much about it yet. But basically, if you want to play a GI in a futuristic war, or you want to play an intergalactic mutant bounty hunter, we got you covered.
The genetically engineered infantryman with his psychics of Bagman and Helm, who goes around trying to clear his name from the terrible betrayal that occurred to him. And of course, you've also got Strontium Dog, who frequently just messes around with time and sees through things with X-ray eyes.
Yeah, so yeah.
That sort of jazz.
Yeah, so obviously you're not playing those specific characters, you're playing in their worlds.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, you will be a different bounty hunter, you won't be Johnny Alpha.
Yeah, or different genetic infantryman, which I imagine will be quite fun.
Yeah, so excited about announcing those.
Yeah,
just kind of wanting to get that out there because I've had so many people asking what's the plans for, and like before, we have to get approval to announce everything. So,
Absolutely.
We've been like, yeah, we got some announcements coming soon. Well, there you go. There's the announcement right there.
Okay, more clicking.
Okay, we do have one last piece of news.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like a job working for Wizards of the Coast on D&D?
Will I have to commute to California?
No, you would have to commute to Seattle, though.
Oh, that's still quite a long way.
It is quite a long way.
But if I was a game developer, I would probably quite enjoy working at Wizards of the Coast, I suspect.
So the last game designer Wizards hired was back in January, if I remember correctly, and that was Kate Welch.
Yeah.
So they've just put up an advert for a brand new job. So Kate Welch will soon be the second most newest official D&D game designer.
Yeah, second most recent hire. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a job. Obviously, you've got to go and live in Seattle to do it. This position, it says, creates D&D products such as a book updating a setting to 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Ooh, nice.
Responsible for leading one product at a time while providing feedback on other products in production. So, it's quite a responsible game design position.
And it sounds like they're gearing up to start bringing out things that aren't Forgotten Realms.
It certainly seems so.
They've been hitting the old Magic the Gathering setting, so I wonder what's
And
going to be next.
Eberron, and they've done Ravenloft already.
Yeah.
And they keep hinting at Spelljammer as well.
Oh.
So who knows?
Tease.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So this is what they want. You need to have experience playing and DMing D&D 5th edition.
Yeah.
Which I assume that most people who apply for this will most certainly have.
I hope they're into it, because otherwise it's going to be a terrible job.
You've got to have at least 3 product credits, books, board games, video games, and the like required, tabletop or digital RPGs preferred.
So if you're a complete noob, they're not that fast.
But they do tend to look at the stuff on the DM's Guild.
So if you've got a lot of publishing there...
Yeah.
Okay.
Although I did see someone online going, just got to have 3 products. Well, I can spam out 50 of them. I'll do that by the end of the week, then I get the job. And it's like, yeah, don't look at them.
I would hope so.
Yes, you do understand that when you show them these 3 products, they'll look at them.
Oh, awkward. Yes, almost like a portfolio of prior published work, yeah.
Also experience using various software, spreadsheets, Word, Excel, that sort of thing. Familiarity with the Chicago Manual of Style, mastery of English grammar, comfortable with algebra, experience with InDesign.
Yeah. Okay, so that all seems...
the sort of stuff you would expect.
InDesign sort of a layout system, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I think probably that's a very wide person specification. I think probably the only barrier to entry would be things like having those product references, credits.
And living in Seattle.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I think that is it for the news. Oh, one last thing, Peter. We have a correction to last week's news.
A correction?
Yes. A listener, Mike Olson, sent in an email.
Okay.
Thanks
for listening, Mike. And thanks for writing in. What's the correction?
He says, hey there, just wanted to email to clarify something about Evil Hat's recent downsizing.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Chris and Carrie weren't laid off or fired. When it was clear that Evil Hat needed to tighten its belt, Chris and Carrie offered to leave to reduce the company's payroll.
Oh, that was very public spirited of them.
Fred Hicks's blog post didn't specify that, but as per Chris and Carrie on Twitter, that's the story. He also goes on to say, I think it's important to keep in mind that Victor von Wolfhausen Smythe was a man so incredibly lithe that when death first came for him and showed Vic his claim for him, the good doctor jumped under his side.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Mike. We do appreciate that.
Yes, that was back from the limerick competition we had a while back.
I recognise it. Yes.
Talking of limerick competitions and other competitions, the Judge Dredd prizes went out this week.
Fantastic news.
Because I was waiting for the very last proof because there was just one last little correction that was being made.
Yes.
Which was a slightly annoying little thing, but it was bugging me. So,
Have you done the traditional thing of getting your brand new final, absolutely approved, everything's good to go copy, opening it up and instantly spotting a typo yet?
that happens every time you publish a book. It goes without fail. Yeah, it is the curse of publishing.
Hello, thank you for calling the Venture Support line. All calls are recorded for quality assurance. How may I assist your call?
We were going down a 10-foot wide corridor. Grognast just dissolved.
Grognast just dissolved, you say? Did you find yourselves suddenly looking around but not seeing anything? A bit like you failed a perception check?
Yeah. No, he's a skeleton floating in the air. Oh no, he's coming right at us.
I'm going to take a wild guess and say he's moving very slowly, about 10 feet around.
Yes, exactly that. 10 feet around. What do we do?
Okay, well, first off, it's important to remain calm. Now, do you have any rocks nearby?
Oh yeah, it's a cave.
Excellent. Grab 2 of them. Now, was Gorgnaf your rogue?
No, he's a barbarian. He's just a bit impatient.
Well, of course he was. Now, ask your rogue if they have any ink and chalk.
What?
Who's the expert here?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, she does.
Perfect. Now, what I want you to do is take the rocks and cover them with the chalk so they're completely white.
Okay. Then what?
Okay, now I need you to use the black ink to draw circles on each of the 2 rocks.
Right. Okay.
Excellent. Good. Now, what I need you to do now is throw the rocks towards the skeleton.
That didn't do anything. They're just kind of hovering in the air.
Perfect. Now the gelatinous cube has googly eyes so you can see it better. Next time, I'd advise don't dump wisdom. Have a nice adventure and be sure to complete the survey following the call.
Hey, Peter.
Yes, Russ.
How would you like to play our favourite game in all the world?
Our favourite game in all the world? Would I ever?
Our favourite game in all the world is the one where I give you the name of a Kickstarter and you try and guess what it is just from the name.
Oh, that one. Okay.
But you're so good at it.
I am amazing. I've scored over 1 million points on several occasions.
That is true.
Thanks to the unique scoring system that you have created.
All right then, are you ready?
Yes, absolutely. Let's do it.
I can see you're poised.
Poised, like a panther.
I can see your eyes are filled with anticipation, eager anticipation.
No, those are tears, but season mistakes make.
Right, the first one. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, what is the Sassoon Files?
Is it a source of musical instrument? No, that'd be the bassoon files. My mistake. The Sassoon Files. Well, the Dresden Files was about a wizard, PI, and the famous series of books. So
I would suggest that the word files probably isn't the descriptive factor.
Well, I'm assuming the Sassoon is the important part, but I know Siegfried Sassoon, who was like a World War I poet, and was not super keen on. No, he was not super keen on World War I. I think it's safe to say that.
Was anyone super keen on World War One?
Many people were at the time. What can I say? Terrible life decisions. Rupert Brooke was like really into it, and yeah, that did not go well for him at all. Sassoon Files, presumably not about World War I poets, because that would be a really depressing game to play, although quite cool. So it's about some sort. So it sounds like a modern day setting, and Sassoon will hopefully be the titular character, and there will be a series of investigatory works taking place. So investigatory roleplay, modern day. I'm hoping for some magic thrown in there because it's role playing. Why not?
It's weird. Like sometimes you just sort of like nail it perfectly and you get every single detail correct.
Is this one of those times?
This is not one of those times.
Oh,
this is the opposite of one of those times.
Where I go meticulously through everything and get every single detail wrong.
Every single detail wrong.
Did I get the name right at least?
I suppose so, yeah. You repeated the name back to me correctly. That's not worth any points.
Oh, it's always such a solid strategy.
Yeah, so you are going to get minus 342 points.
Okay, that's not bad. I've had worse, I'll be honest.
That is true. So this is set in 1920s Shanghai.
Ooh.
It's adventure and campaign book for Call of Cthulhu and for the Gumshoe system.
Nice. So it is investigatory, but set in 1920 Shanghai.
International city of intrigue, espionage, style and violence in a 150 to 200 page book.
It's a nice place.
It's a range of scenarios that can be played as one-offs or as part of the larger campaign.
Fantastic.
Sounds quite interesting, no?
Yeah, could be very much up for that. And that's coming out for Call of Cthulhu. Is that Chaosium Press or is it third-party publisher?
Chaosium, yeah.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Well, Call of Cthulhu is Chaosium. The Kickstarter is by Singularity LLC.
Singularity LLC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Call of Cthulhu is Chaosium and Gumshoe is Pelgrave Press.
Yes. Pelgrave Press being the British publishers who also did 13th Age as
Yes,
well.
they did.
Yes.
Okay, the next one.
Yeah.
Rodent Rangers, small heroes, big adventures.
The best game ever. Oh, it sounds like the role-playing adaptation of the Rescue Rangers cartoon series, where you've got like two tiny chipmunks, Chip and Dale, and their other rodent friends, and they're like, okay, this was obviously after your time. Hi.
Before my time, perhaps.
Potentially, sure. So, what we've got, Rodent Ranger. Yeah, so you get to roleplay as a series of rodents and do, I guess, basically D&D style shenanigans, but has very small creatures.
Yeah, I reckon that's worth a good 8 out of 10.
Woohoo!
It's a family-friendly RPG.
Yep.
Inspired by classic cartoons of mousy adventures.
So
The only classic cartoon of mousy adventure I know is Danger Mouse, but it's not that.
Yeah, that'd be super not. Yeah, this was like, it's a Disney thing. It's got two chipmunks. One's called Chip, one's called Dale. I don't know why, because they got Chip and Dale, and it was like funny in the 80s.
Well, this only has...
It's fine. Yes, anyway.
Yeah, okay, so your characters
Yes.
are field agents of an international organisation of problem solvers.
Nice.
Set in the modern world, and you play mice and other small critters. Now you get some pictures there. Look,
Mouse in a top hat.
very, very, very cute looking artwork there. It's obviously designed for kids, and yeah, that was fun.
It's a family friendly game. Yeah, and kids and big kids, little kids and big kids alike can play.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
The organisation, the Rodent Rangers, is headquartered in the basement of the American Red Cross building in Washington DC.
That's a very specific location.
It is.
I'm sure there's a reason for that, but I'm afraid I don't get the cultural signifier. But good for them. Red Cross, good stuff. What's next?
Dungeon Discoveries.
Okay. Dungeon Discoveries. I would expect a book that is full of tables to procedurally generate a dungeon, full of interesting paraphernalia to populate it with, your denizen, maybe even some sort of, it's either going to be 5th Ed or a sort of system-free sort of setting. My smart money probably on 5th Ed, but I like the idea of a system-free one. And then you've got like various things, so you can have a real proper OSR crawl where you're just going around through the place and there's just all this random stuff stacked next to each other. You're like, what even is going on here? But it'd be really interesting and fantastic.
Okay, well, you're not far off.
Oh.
The only thing you got wrong really there is it's not a book, it's a card deck.
Oh.
But pretty much otherwise, yeah. You use these cards, they're system neutral, you mentioned system neutral, and they're decks to help with world building with a flip of a card. And so each card set has 400 seeds, and then you combine 2 or more of them to give different combinations, which give different ideas for your adventures.
That's a hell of a lot of replayability.
So there's 3 sets in the campaign. There's Fumbled Searches, Curious Treasures, and a third one as yet to be decided, but will be chosen via a backer poll during the campaign.
That sounds like a fantastic idea. I guess in a sort of a different sort of approach to yourself, they don't necessarily have like all the artwork and all the things put in place yet,
or even know what they're going to be doing. No,
I'm sure they have plans.
I'm sure they do.
Absolutely.
So I reckon that's worth a good 8 points out of 8.5.
Oh, fantastic! My aim's getting better.
Yes. That's it for our favourite game in all the world this week.
Oh, fantastic!
Would you like to do the topic of the week?
I would love to do the topic of the week.
What is this week's topic of this week?
This is how to plan a campaign.
If we started from a broad point of view,
Yes.
would you consider yourself to be a meticulous planner? If there was a scale,
Yes.
and at one end was meticulous planner,
Yes.
of someone who writes down every single detail and knows exactly what is going to happen and is prepared for everything.
I'll call that 1.
Or do you just turn up and make up as you go along, being the other end of the scale?
Actually,
where would you place yourself on that scale?
Let's call the planning everything a 10. And the planning nothing a 0.
Okay.
I'm a definite 6. Varying between an 8, when I'm feeling very productive and writing lots of stuff down, and sometimes going up as far as a 2.
Okay. I am probably a 2 or a 3.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's a pre-published adventure, in which case I'm probably a 0. I actually mentioned this on Twitter the other day, and I was trying to prep for an adventure.
Yes.
I was running that. No, I'm not just going to say the name of it because I'm not planning on just slacking people off or anything. But I was trying to run an adventure, and it was 16 pages of adventure, preceded by 4 pages of backstory, and this backstory was dense with sort of fantasy name words and places and stuff like that. And I was reading it was like reading a history textbook.
Right? Did you manage to stay awake whilst prepping?
It was like, I hate reading extensive backstory for adventures.
Yeah, pretty much.
I really, really do. It's like I hate cutscenes in video games.
Oh yes, or long, wordy, when they're doing pages and pages of writing on a film.
Oh yeah.
No, nobody's got time for it.
Yeah.
We came to play games, not to read stuff.
So I'm probably about I'm about 3 probably, I guess.
Yeah. You all read, but only when forced to by exigency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I've often found that my best campaigns, at least the ones my players say, amongst my best campaigns, have been ones where I've tended to wing it. So I've got a concept, and I've got some vague ideas of what is going to happen, but I haven't particularly planned it or anything like that. So, and that makes it quite a free-form, quite a sandboxy type of adventure style, which I find kind of works well. And you just pick up on what the players are doing and sort of run with it.
Yeah.
Which I enjoy doing immensely, and also it involves less work, which I also enjoy immensely.
Oh, absolutely. Approaching things from a maximising enjoyment, minimising unnecessary effort is definitely the way to go.
Absolutely. That's not for everyone, though.
No.
Some people like to, meticulously plan their campaigns, and I suppose that's what we're here to talk about. What sort of techniques do you use when planning a campaign?
With things like setting the scene, setting the tone, I see that a lot of people tend to go and enjoy huge lengths of descriptive text.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
No.
I know, right? Because there are basically 3 ways to do a speech. You can memorise your speech and recite it word perfect without looking at notes. You can have some bullet points that you riff off and talk about what you're going to talk about. Or you can read something out from a piece of paper. And of those, 1 is probably the best way to give a speech. 2 is more relevant to an RPG context. And 3 is dreadful and should not be done.
I tend to find, 2 is better, because what happens is, instead of you delivering information in a sort of formatted manner to your players, you're basically talking to them.
Yes.
So, it's not like you're not on stage, you're not in a film, you're not being reviewed or anything. You're basically talking to your players. So you can, talk quite casually to them, describing things, using whatever analogies you need to use to get the message across in a quite natural kind of way. It works so much better. So you enter a room and I was trying to think of an example off the top of my head.
It's a kitchen. So.
Yeah, so for zombies, so you could read some box text.
Yes.
And the box text could. You enter the room. It is 20 feet by 13 feet across. At one end, there is a doorway, and the light streams through a stained glass window and tickles imaginatively across the floor or whatever. I don't know. That was awful.
I'm sure I've been in that room.
Whereas I might sort of say, okay, so you go into them. Think about, sort of like, I don't know, Salisbury Cathedral when you walk in there and what it kind of feels like that. So it's a bit like that. So you walk in there and it's about that sort of size, and you can sort of feel this draft coming through as well. And I say it quite casually like that. So it's more like I'm talking to the players using frames of references they understand, rather than reading out flowery text at them.
Yeah, if you've got a conceptual hook to hang things off, like if you know there's a common experience that everyone in the room has had, that's probably quite a solid way to go.
Yeah.
Some excellent advice that I've seen is to start with the most important things first. You walk into the room, there are some orcs at the table playing cards.
I love those things where you get this sort of like half page of descriptive text of a room, and then right at the end it's like, and there's a 40-foot dragon. Would that not have been the first thing we noticed?
That's what you should be leaving.
Well, you're busy describing the intricate designs on that vase over there.
Coralance of the Destroyer has breathed flame all over you. The end. Yeah. So you start off with the things that people will notice first. So is that people? People notice people first. Animals. Is it treasure? Like something shiny? Is there a centerpiece in the room? And you start off with that, and then you sort of.
I find it's biscuits. That's the things I notice first in any room.
Okay, so you open the door. You notice a plate of biscuits on a table. Surrounding the biscuits are some orcs playing cards.
Exactly.
They appear to be drinking tea. On second thoughts, you're puzzled by the fact that there appear to be orcs drinking tea and having biscuits. But anyway, so what you should prep is where you're weak. You shouldn't prep stuff where you're good at. Like for myself, I suspect for you, prepping a big description of a room, that's a lot of effort. And ultimately, how important is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I also find if you leave information out, players will fill that in their heads anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
So you don't need to describe everything because they'll do it for themselves in their heads. And if it's not important, vital information, plot critical information, it doesn't really matter what it is that they're imagining, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily matter what colour they're imagining the walls to be, as long as that image works in their head.
Yeah, if somebody wants to go through a room with greystone walls, awesome. If they prefer it to be red brick, I'm not that fussed. If I then need to rely on a secret door being in according to which brick you pressed, then it's important for me to make sure I've described the walls. It's a bit like a Chekhov's rifle in that fashion. If you see a rifle on if you're going to rely on the rifle going off in the third act, you need to have it there in the first act. Yeah, so you should prep things you're weak at. So for us, that sort of room description, less useful. But even if you are weak at it, having bullet points and riffing off them, definitely the way forwards. So I guess other things would be NPCs. I found this really helpful in Adventurers League. When I've been reading through it, I like to try and give them an accent each.
I'm very weak on accents.
So. Well, accents is sort of my shorthand, but everybody, even if they can't do an accent, can do different ways of talking. For instance, you can do someone who sounds very, very uptight, and all your elves might be very uptight and speak to you in such a fashion.
Sorry, were you going to do a voice?
Well, indeed. Or sometimes you could just be a bit slower. And the way you speak. And everyone has different voices that they use at different times. The way you talk to a parent is different from the way you talk to a police officer, is different from the way you talk to your dog. So working out NPCs and things like coming up with motivations for your NPCs, descriptions of them. Do you need a full stat block for an NPC?
Depends on the NPC.
It depends on your party.
It depends on whether the party's going to fight your NPC.
Or not, yeah, exactly. It depends on how well trained they are. What signs and signifiers are you hanging on your NPC to make them think about fighting them? Are they the sort of people that are likely to go around kicking off on like random people that are chatting to them?
Some players are like that. That is quite frustrating.
Yes. Fortunately, I haven't had so many of those, but again, I tend to be very exploration focused in my games. So they tend to be wandering around, looking at stuff and saying, what's going on with this? Or like the NPC is like chatting to them. Does your plot need 2 NPCs to have a conversation in front of the players?
Oh, no, that I hate. That is awkward.
That is just objectively terrible.
Yeah. That is something to try and avoid. Unless, I don't know, unless you're some kind of really, really good voice actor and can really, really somehow manage to make that come alive.
Russ, I'm going to say not even then, mate.
Yeah.
No one wants to see your hot NPC on NPC action.
No, you're right.
Just
you're right.
It's just the worst.
It's a bad one.
Yeah. Now,
I think occasionally you can have NPCs talk to each other, but in those cases, rather than turning your head one way then the other and doing 2 different voices, just tell the players what the conversation was about.
Exactly. Key phrases, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And have the framing right. For instance, at the weekend, I was playing my Kobold Rogue, snuck up to a tent, because you know what tents aren't? They're not soundproof. And nobody remembers that. So you tend to hear all sorts of interesting things through the walls, and picked up some relatively useful information, which is nice. But if I'd had to listen to NPCs actually having a conversation, very dull.
Yeah, I mean, the GM can quite easily just say, yes, the butler walks over to the doorman and admonishes him for his poor behaviour, without having to recite the conversation word for word. Exactly.
It's all about, I think the main thing about that sort of scene setting sort of thing is that you have to know where your focus is. A bit like a sort of director making a film. They have to know what's the centre part of the scene that they're making and how it's going to transition. And I think, again, that falls into prep work, which is you sort of have to plan through things a bit in your head, but you have to offer players at least the illusion of choice so that they at least feel that they have agency. Because player agency is a big thing, and railroading is the act of making it very clear that there's only one path that you can follow.
Well, there's definitely arguments about the sort of scale between railroading and sandboxing.
Yes.
And there are people out there that despise any hint of railroading, which I don't agree with. I think some railroading can be very, very useful.
I think there's been a lot of terrible GMs out there.
Yeah, bad railroading is bad.
Yes.
Good railroading is when it's subtle.
You know what it's like? It's like a theme park ride, like one of those where you're sort of going through a haunted house, and you know you're on the rails, but you don't mind because everything is so cool.
That's not quite what I mean by railroading in that kind. That's sort of extreme railroading when the thing is literally going to go this, and there's nothing going to take it off that. But what I mean is. There's nothing wrong with the GM steering things in certain directions when it's needed at all. Nothing wrong with that in the slightest, because that's how stories are made. I mean, sure, you can play a pure sandbox and just literally just sit there and just tap your feet waiting for the PCs to tell you what they want to do in this town. And they go, oh, right, we're going to go and have coffee, and then we're going to go and rob a bank, and then we're going to go and, and make them come up with their own ideas. But that isn't good storytelling.
No, that's a more Lemony Snicket's series of incoherent events.
Yeah. So I tend to find a mix of sandboxing and railroading is good.
Oh, yeah, there's like a sort of a decision tree to be made. Rather than a direct sort of thing. And for things like riddles to be solved and encounters and so forth, have one solution, maybe 2 or 3 solutions in mind. But if players come up with something creative to get past it, yeah, why not?
Oh yeah, absolutely never nerf a player's clever idea. That's just frustrating for the player, and it's not fun whatsoever. If they come up with a clever idea, and you as the GM just sitting there thinking, well, that completely defeats this elaborate and exciting thing I had in mind.
Yeah.
Roll with it anyway. Go with the player's clever idea, because the game isn't about servicing your amazing resolution.
Yes, it's just being able to adapt on the fly. I mean, like we were saying about how to start a game and so forth, being able to adapt, improvise are key skills even when you've got a module, because a module won't cover every single opportunity, and the more constrained players feel, the more they will act out. And the more they'll just do something completely random that you were never expecting. Because they're just trying desperately to get some agency, get some freedom back. Positive hooks are like things like treasure, magic items, sort of like, greed, basically. And negative hooks would be like trying to save other people or preventing destruction. And the end of the world is the sort of call to adventure.
Why are they negative? I don't understand the distinction now. What's negative and positive about those?
It's like whether it's a positive motivator to do something because something good will happen if you do it.
Right.
And a negative hook would be something bad will happen if you don't do it.
Right, okay, all right.
So a negative hook would be the apocalypse. It would be a very strong negative hook because if you don't get on that, it's the end of the world.
Yeah, okay, yeah, gotcha.
That's a very strong call to adventure. Whereas a positive hook would be if you go to like this dwarven hold, there could be like all sorts of magical treasure in there.
Yeah.
You should get in there and loot it, mate. But positive hooks are actually easier to ignore, but I think are probably better hooks. Because having to do something is a lot like work. And, who wants to be an adventurer just to do work? But again, it's understanding the motivations of the characters. That's quite important there, don't you think?
Yeah.
What do you need to prepare for a session? NPCs, if you have them, how they speak, descriptions of where you're going to be, what you're trying to achieve, what each scene that you're creating is trying to achieve. Because I think that's a lot of people do scenes and they don't really think about what piece of information or what the goal of that is. If you're doing, say, a combat scene, then setting it up is really important. So do you personally... do you prefer to use stat blocks, or do you know them all off the top of your head?
Oh, well, like in D&D?
Yeah.
Well, I certainly don't know them all off the top of my head.
No.
There's loads of them. I'm very good at improvising with them. And generally, when you know a game system well enough, you can pretty much recreate stat blocks in your head on the fly anyway. Well, not necessarily the entire stat block, but the bits of it you need.
Yeah.
For any given... roughly what a creature's AC is supposed to be. Roughly what its attack bonus is supposed to be, or what sort of amount of damage it's supposed to be doing, or what sort of abilities it's likely to have. And once you've got those, once you've basically got the sort of basic concepts of scale for these various important bits in your head, it's quite easy just on the fly do it.
Yeah, but I feel there's a certain argument to be made for preparation of some things. Like if you're planning like an ambush for the party. Making a combat interesting, just so it's not you're fighting a couple of orcs in a 10-foot by 10-foot room. Like, are they...
Well, you're talking set piece battles, basically, preparing set pieces. And
Yeah.
so I remember one I had, which was this great big clockwork tower, and there were all these gears revolving, all at different speeds.
Oh, yeah.
So at the end of each round, all the gears, you'd move all the gears around a bit, so all the players would end up being repositioned, which is always quite funny. So you find yourself suddenly fighting someone different or near someone entirely different, and that was a good fun. That one I enjoyed.
That's a really good idea. Actually, I like that. Totally stealing that.
Okay then,
Hey,
I'll charge you.
yeah.
I'll invoice.
What other ones? Water, marsh. Just changing things up a bit because the general way most battles unfold is if you've got a single strong enemy, all the players will rush up and the fighters will stand around it, whacking it with sticks, and the casters will stand back and throw things at it.
Yeah.
How can you mess around with this? And I find goblins are amazing for this because they're terribly weak and rubbish enemies, and they're aware they're terribly weak and rubbish enemies. So things like if your goblins have long enough, a bridge across the river, they sword through some of the important supports. They've got themselves like a little hide on the other side. Your party's coming along, they're shooting arrows at you. The party rushes forwards, halfway across, the bridge collapses. How's your swim check, guy in chainmail? And obviously, in D&D, there's no penalty for wearing chainmail, but at that point you start improvising house rules about making athletics checks at disadvantage and so forth.
Yeah.
Or reflex saves to not fall into the water. By the time they've thrown themselves across, that's when your second hide of goblins pops out and starts rushing around and engaging the wizards in close combat.
Yeah, well, using waves is always a good idea in an encounter. We're not really talking about campaign planning now. We're talking about sort of managing an encounter as well.
Yeah.
But using waves is always a good way to do it because Once the fight, because often a fight will do, as you say, they'll kind of get bogged down in a sort of sticking point, and there's certain editions of D&D where that was really bad.
Yes.
The 5th edition is not so bad; it's a bit more mobile, but
it's a lot more mobile.
yeah. So having second waves coming in just to completely disrupt that.
Yes.
But I was going to say that my favourite thing about setting up combats is, generally speaking, don't make the point of the combat to kill all the bad guys.
Oh, yeah.
There's combat going on while you're trying to achieve something else. That makes for a much more interesting combat.
Yes.
So, for example, you might have, I don't know, I just from my head. There's a fire raging and you're fighting a whole bunch of, let's say, goblins, because you mentioned goblins before. But your goal isn't to kill all the goblins, it's to rescue
Rescue the farmer's daughter who's trapped in the
eight children in there. So basically, you're doing that while fighting the goblins, but you succeed in the encounter by rescuing the 8 children and getting them out of the fire, not by killing all the goblins.
Yeah, I think that's something from the new World of Darkness rule set, where they said, it's like one of the things I read. What's the goal of this encounter? What are the victory conditions for both sides? Yeah, and having that for the
so the goblins in that particular situation their goal is just to kill all of you.
Yeah,
whereas your goal isn't to kill all of them. You've got totally different goals.
Or maybe they're also competing with you to try and steal the children.
Or maybe they're trying to rescue the farmer's daughter too.
And you're trying to
rescue the farmer's daughter.
It's so much competition. Why can't you just get along? Exactly. So having that sort of competition, having different terrain, and really making it something so it becomes less of an exercise in dice rolling. Because I'm nothing against dice rolling, but it can go on for a very long time. And the reason why we talk about combat encounters and social encounters, which have certain amounts of things, which is what is the source of conflict, dramatically speaking, in this scene, and what do people hope to get from it? And those are the key questions that you have to ask about each one of those. And what scenes you think are likely to come up, that goes into your session planning, and then you've got your overall campaign, which is what sessions you think are going to be, how do you get from the start, where they're zeros, all the way to where they're heroes.
If that's what you want to do. You don't necessarily have to have a zero-to-hero campaign.
You don't. And things like failing forward, always very strong. I think there's a rule of 3.
Yeah, so why don't you explain, I know what it is, but why don't you explain what failing forward is?
Oh, sure. Well, if you have a murder mystery, say, and you want your players to have a go at working out what's going on, then a very, very common mistake is to make people roll for spotting the completely bleeding obvious. And then...
Well, not so much as it's bleeding obvious, but the thing that is required for the adventure to continue. So, basically, for the adventure to work, they have to spot it.
Yes, and if they fail, you've hit a brick wall.
And generally, you'll end up giving it to them anyway, so why make a spot check? Yeah.
Exactly. Why are you rolling the dice?
You make a check, and if you succeed, you succeed. Yes. If you fail, you still succeed, because the plot has to move forward, but with a complication. That's how failing forward works. So that allows the adventure to continue, but something bad happens.
Yes. Other examples would be like rather than having a failed stealth roll lead to a fight that you'd rather not have, it makes something else more complicated, and that is something that people often forget about or don't think to include.
So the other thing you mentioned a second ago was the rule of 3. Why don't you explain what that one is?
The rule of 3 is that you should have at least 3 clues in any scene for a mystery, the discovery of any one of which will allow the plot to advance.
Okay.
So I am a bit on the spot for thinking of things to put in. But I mean, every time you run a game, when you first start out, you will learn something. You'll make loads of mistakes. I think that sort of making mistakes is a continual process. It's a continual process of improvement. The idea is that you make different mistakes as you go on. Yeah. Finding new, bolder, bigger, better mistakes to make as you go along.
Exactly. Well, we've talked quite a bit on running and planning campaigns.
Yes.
It's a bit of a smorgasbord, that, isn't it? We covered quite a lot of different things.
Oh, absolutely. But I think the basic structure of you need sort of a meta plot, then you need to plot out your individual sessions and how much plotting and planning you need to do.
Or alternatively, you don't need a meta plot, you just make it up as you go along.
You can. Certainly a valid way to do it, but it will be, I feel, often a less satisfying story.
Well, I think we're probably done then on this particular topic of the week.
Hello, your editor Daryl here to remind you of our Patreon at patreon.com/Morrus. Did it sound like the guys were jumping around from subject to subject during the main topic with no real segues between them? That's because I had to cut out a lot of great content for time, and this episode was already long enough as it is, and I wanted to make sure we focused on the subject at hand. So if you want to know more about monster design, theme and tone, crafting challenges, and creating mysteries along with discussions of cookies, Daleks, structures, Aurochs, running for Prime Minister, and more, you can check out our Outtakes and Deleted Scenes episode available to all of our Patreon backers the day after the show. So check us out at patreon.com/Morrus to help support the show.
Thank you very much for listening to us this week. We hope that you took away some valuable tips and hints, but if you didn't, we hope you enjoyed it anyway. And if you didn't, we hope you didn't hate it too much. And if you did, we hope you do better next time.
Once again, we have only to thank our generous patrons who are helping enable us to continue stuff.
So thank you very much for listening to us. This will be a goodbye from me, Russ.
It's a goodbye from me, Peter Coffey, from Southampton Guild of Roleplayers.
Goodbye from him.
That's a goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from me.
And that's it. Thanks for listening.
Listening to that drivel just made me feel nauseous. Maybe a spot of eyeball raking will make me feel a bit better. But which one shall I torture? I do enjoy Russ's screams, but Peter makes these wonderful gurgling noises when he's in pain. Decisions.